Welcome to this video. Yeah, you very much liked the recent videos that I produced on my own over-the-board games, and I'm going to do more of those. This is about a game that I played about 3 weeks ago with the classical long time control in the German league, the third league where my team plays in. My opponent was a veteran international master, Jürgen Fleck. Was rated 2,390 around the game that was played, so pretty evenly matched encounter. Yeah, something about the preparation for the game, because you always think ahead. What are you going to play? I recognize that, and we can go to here. That Fleck, he's playing mostly two openings against the d4 knight f3 c4 complex, so non-e4 openings. He mostly plays two things. He plays the King's Indian and the Slav. In recent years, I was seeing that he was preferring the Slav more, and I was focused on that. When I was looking at his games, I saw that he preferred to play sharp systems. For example, what he has played, what I had played a number of times, was the Bodwinnik semi-Slav. Very sharp opening, which is maybe slightly dodgy, but also very, very tricky for white to prepare if you have no basic knowledge, and I don't have any really basic knowledge. My normal response to the Slav at the moment is to play queen b3 or queen c2, one of those moves. However, I had a preparation problem with that. I only recently had played this, and in a game just a couple of months ago, which is in the database, and I knew that my opponent is preparing very thoroughly before the games and looks at recent games and so on. And in fact, this turned out to be the case. After the game, he said he had something prepared against this. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to play something that he did not expect, but what on the other hand is safe, so nothing that is very very demanding from a theoretical point of view to prepare. At the end, I came up with, and I hope you're not falling asleep, with the exchange Slav. This opening I had played in tournament chess before, but the last time was 9 years ago, so it was nothing that he prepared. And it turns out to be that this is, or it is very often the case that black players, they think that with the exchange, white is only playing for a draw, and it's not very ambitious. However, that's not the case. I didn't want to play a draw in this game. I just wanted to play it safe and try to pose some little problems and see what he's doing about it. Let's see what happens. I played bishop f4. This is the first little important thing. It's important to play this move first here. If white wants to play the exchange Slav, he really should start with exactly this move. The reason is that if you put it on f3, the knight here, you limit yourself very much in your setups. We will see this later in the game. It's a bit difficult to understand right here, but it will get more clear. I get clearer when we come to later positions. Also, white can play knight c3 here, of course, but this has a slight drawback that quite funny enough is not used very often by black players. Here black has the funny reply e5 leading to interesting play, or he has the reply knight c6, which after bishop f4 can allow this. There are some funny sidelines that black can play, so they are not necessarily brilliant, but bishop f4 is the cleanest way to avoid that. Black played knight f6, knight c3, knight c6. The only way to try to exploit this early bishop move is queen b6, by the way, after which white is normally sacrificing the b2 pawn, which is quite sharp. So it's not really a dull opening all of the time. However, he didn't play that. Black, as usually, played knight c6, developing, which is of course a good move. Now e3, and we note that I'm still delaying the development of the bishop. Of the knight, I'm sorry. The reason is, if we look further, black now plays a6. This is a normal line nowadays. Black is addressing the knight b5 idea with knight c7 coming. And what he also does is he plays a somewhat useful waiting move. If white now plays knight f3, black is able to play bishop g4. And this already is a position that white has no hope for an advantage anymore. The reason is that after a move like bishop e2, black is just trading off this and plays bishop d6 later. And with the knight not coming to e5, it's very difficult for white to do anything. In this type of very symmetrical position, in fact, the bishops are not as useful. Especially here the f3 bishop is quite useless. If we compare this, the knights can be more effective in this position. For example, black might go for a knight tour like that. So I avoided knight f3. This is a very typical, almost mistake. It really gives up any hope to play for an edge. So this was what I had in my preparation, and I was thinking, how can I pose some problems here? Bishop d3 is the main move here. The idea is that after bishop g4 now, white can play knight e2. At least with this, after a bishop trade, the bishop is not misplaced on f3. Or white can play f3, those kind of ideas. I had a look at that, but I didn't like it very much. And then I found that white can do something else. White can also play the somewhat strange move bishop e2. And this is what I played at the end in the game. Bishop e2 is quite interesting. It has more than one idea. The main idea is that it can irritate black a little bit, because in response to the normal looking move bishop f5, which he played after some minutes, played that, white also has the additional possibility to go g4. This I also looked at in my preparation, but I did not really like it that much. It also weakens white's position quite a bit. It can lead to very unclear play. Something like this happened in a game between Andreikin and Wang Hao. They unfortunately made the draw very soon afterwards. But as you see, this is a pretty wild position. My idea was different. I had anticipated bishop f5, of course, and I just played knight f3. Yeah, note that now I can go to f3 because bishop g4. Yeah, he doesn't have bishop g4 anymore. I mean, he could play it here, but it's just the loss of a tempo. Yeah, what is the point of this? The point is that here black is posed with a question: what to do next? The problem is that the very natural move e6 is probably not imprecise, but it makes life a little bit more difficult for black. And this was the point that I wanted to check. What is he playing now? It seems that the most precise move here is rook c8. Why? Rook c8 is useful anyway because this is the half-open file. And the point is, if I go queen b3 now, which is pretty typical, attacking this weakness on b7, he has knight a5. The reason is, or the big point is, that now if I give the check, black can just play b5. If I now go for a sacrifice, he can block this easily because the bishop here is still protected. Yeah, this is very important. Rook c8 instead of e6. In the game, he played e6. We go back to the game. e6. I went queen b3, and now we see there's a difference with the move e6 being played. Now knight a5 is not good. There is queen a4 check, and after b5 I can just sacrifice this piece, because now this is an absolutely deadly pin. Yeah, e6 is breaking off this diagonal. So there is a big difference between e6 and rook c8. And he played e6, and I think this is not really a mistake, but it makes life, as mentioned, a bit more difficult. After e6, queen b3, as mentioned, was played. Now knight a5, the normal response is not possible. So what should he do? It turns out that the move rook a7, which is what he played, is not very satisfactory. It seems that after rook a7, black has a hard time to equalize, really. Rook a7 was played. However, black still has a good move here, and this is bishop to d6. And yeah, this is something that is not so easy to play if you don't know it. It's hard to figure out over the board. The point is, you just ignore b7 hanging. If I'm taking b7 now, there is knight a5 and my queen is trapped. Funny. Yeah. White can, theoretically speaking, look at this. It's not totally crazy. Yeah, giving up the queen for rook, piece and pawn, but it is ultimately, I guess, not sufficient if we look at this. Castles, knight e4. White has some compensation. Yeah, the king is in the middle, and white has a good structure, but it shouldn't be enough to compensate. Of course, I don't need to take on b7 and give up my queen like that. The real test of this is, of course, the capture. Takes, and then queen b7. Now I'm just winning the pawn. However, after castles, the situation is not clear, as black is threatening rook b8, winning the queen. So white can retreat, and after, let's say, this is not the only move, knight b4, black has a very decent compensation for the pawn. There have been 1 or 2 games played earlier that came to this. In fact, there was one game that was played just a couple of days before my game. I wasn't aware of that, of course. Played between 2 Spanish players in Linares. Yeah, an IM and a FIDE master facing off. Here they played it with castles, knight c2, rook b1, rook b8, queen a4, rook c8. Black definitely has compensation for the pawn. It is easy once you see it here, but it's not so easy to do over the board when you're faced with those decisions. Should I really sacrifice a pawn that early? He went with, as mentioned, rook a7. It does not look so terrible, because very often you do that, this rook a7 maneuver to cover b7, because it's quite often the case that the white queen is not so ideally placed here as well, and then you can just move the rook back once the queen is retreated. But here, after the immediate knight e5, there is a problem. Black really now has nothing better than to trade off on e5. Takes. And now he went knight d7. Around here you can look at various other setups, but ultimately we will always come to the same situation. It is pretty much impossible now, I think, for black to still completely equalize the game in the next couple of moves. An alternative to knight d7 was b5, the immediate b5. After that I'm going to castle, bishop e7, and now a4. This is a main problem with the b pawn move. White always is going to play a4, after which b4 is pretty much forced. If black takes, yeah, the combined pressure on the a file will be too much. You will lose the pawn here. So b4, knight back to b1, castles, knight d2. And this is the same structure that is appearing in the game. In fact, if black plays knight d7 here, we would transpose. This is, however, a little bit more precise for black, I think. Still not a very entertaining position to play, but it seems to be a little bit tougher for me to make headway. Knight d7 was a bit accommodating, I think. I went back to g3, keeping the bishop, of course. And now bishop e7. Yeah, b5 here is a similar situation. There are some interesting lines though. If we look at b5 here, let's say I'm castling, normal, knight f6 back. Yeah, it's a little bit strange, yeah, but just I want to show one idea that is in the position. Knight a2, knight e4, a5. It's quite interesting. White can even give up an exchange here for interesting play. It shows that even from those kind of dull openings, or openings with a dull reputation, you can get sharp positions. Something like that is definitely not boring. White's a pawn is exceptionally strong. It is not a forced line. It just shows that there are some interesting ways to play on the queen side here. Really based on the fact that black's position is not totally harmonious. Yeah, he went bishop e7, which I think is quite logical in connection to knight e7. Castles, rook fc1. Of course, the f rook goes to c1, not the a rook, because I want to have the a rook on a1 for a possible a4 move. Yeah, and here it is very, very difficult for black to defend this position. He went with b5, obviously knowing, I mean, we had a look at the game afterwards, obviously knowing that this is immensely weakening lots of squares and pawns on the queen side. But it's very difficult for black to play this position. There are some direct ways to lose the game. For example, a normal move like queen b6, yeah, looks totally normal, but it is in fact losing right away because of knight b5. Knight b5 is very strong. A piece sacrifice out of the blue. Yeah, but the point is, this is threatened. Winning the queen, and the knight is attacking the rook, so black has to take. Bishop c7, queen a6, bishop b5, and white wins the queen. Oops. Yeah, it can happen really quickly, even in those kind of lame openings. Knight b5 is a quite nice response to queen b6. Yeah, and what happens if he's not playing b5? Let's say he plays a waiting move. Rook e8. Then knight a4 is the idea. White is threatening bishop c7. And this is very, very problematic now. If black now plays b5, I'm going to go to c5. And it will be very, very difficult to tolerate this knight. You probably have to take it. But after the capture, white is getting a super strong c-pawn. Note that this is supported by the bishop and the rook. So this is really quite a lot. And I have a4 to make it even more problematic. This is almost winning for white, I think. Very difficult for black. Yeah, so what should he do? b5, not possible. A tricky reply is queen a5, which might get some counterplay with queen d2 or possibly queen b4, exchanging the queen. However, white has a good move here, bishop f1. This is a good prophylactic move. It prevents any queen d2 with tempo and really asks black, okay, what are you going to do next? Yeah, if black is doing something, yeah, let's say h5 is really silly looking, and let's say h6, some nothing move, then again, this is a good reply. Yeah, aiming for domination on the queen side, something like this, for example, is super ugly for black. I'm just invading with all pieces and probably will win the material quickly here. A very, very difficult position already. Okay, he went b5 and b5. And yeah, now I think the next step is clear. I need to make sure that the queen side is opening up. a4. Yeah, okay, no choice. Black has to push b4. Taking on a4 is basically giving up the a-pawn. So he has to push this, and I'm going back to b1. Yeah, why to b1? Because d2 is a good square, which has multiple ideas. From d2, I have the idea to go to f3 to e5. This happened in the game. Or sometimes knight d2 to b3 can also be an idea, because c5 and a5 might be good squares as well. So it's really not a problem that the knight is back on b1 for the moment. Yeah, here he played knight f6, which is quite normal. But it also shows that the earlier knight d7 move was probably not that great. He was, I think, thinking about queen b6, which, as we saw, did not work out when he played knight d7. Yeah, knight f6 was played. During the game, I was briefly thinking maybe black should do something very ugly and just hack this knight off to play this position. It is not fun, really not. But the knight coming to e5 is also a huge problem later. I'm not sure. White is quite substantially better now in any case. It's only it's difficult to really to judge what is the right or what is the relatively best defense. Yeah, he didn't take, but he took on he didn't take. He played knight f6, intending knight e4. Yeah, okay. Of course, I go knight d2. That's pretty clear. And yeah, black now played the move queen to d7. Maybe queen a8 was a tougher defense, intending rook c8 in another way. White keeps an advantage with the move a5 here. Very important move that makes sure that the rook is always tied to this defense of the a6 pawn. White is still enjoying a very nice position here. Maybe it was a bit tougher than the game continuation, but it's already quite difficult to give black some advice. He played queen d7, went knight f3. Yeah, very logical. a5 was also strong. Yeah, this move, as mentioned, on queen a8, this was an idea. On queen d7, it also is. But I really wanted to get the knight to e5 quickly. This seemed very logical to me. There's knight e5, knight c6. This whole queenside operation has weakened lots of squares. Especially c6 is weakened after the b pawn has pushed to b4. Yeah, he played rook c8. And I went knight to e5. Here maybe queen d1 was also possible. It is, as mentioned, it's not totally clear what the best move order is, but white is always keeping an edge. Yeah, he played queen e8. Queen b7 is maybe a bit tougher, just a little bit tougher. After that, I'm not quite sure. Probably f3 is a good reply. Yeah, which makes sure that there's no knight e4 coming. It keeps more pieces on the board and makes my position a little bit more flexible. I can sometimes put the bishop here if I want, attacking this, or I can keep the bishop, which is the most important thing. Also, I still have the a5 idea. Yeah, for instance, after rook a8, a5 is still giving white a good position. Yeah, he went to e8, after which I played queen d1. Yeah, queen d1 is a good move. The queen is not doing much anymore on b3, and it has more than one idea. The main idea is to control c1, so that I'm actually just intending to take on c8 and then play rook c1 again to occupy the file. There are some additional ideas. Sometimes even queen f1 is an idea to eye the a6 pawn. But first and foremost, it's about the c file. Yeah, he played rook a to a8. Yeah, you really have problems here. I was thinking this is also a move, bishop d6, but after that, white has a very strong reply. In fact, if we look at this, I can take. And now white has a super strong move, knight c6. That's very nice. Yeah, I'm attacking the rook, and yeah, black really has to take it. Yeah, the knight. Then rook c1 is strong. The point is that black cannot really recapture here, as rook c8 will win the queen. So white has gained the total bishop pair and dominance on the c file. This is fantastic for white. Yeah? Almost winning. So there are some funny tactics here even. Yeah, he went rook a to e8, not this move, but a to a8. And now I can play it simple. I just took on c8, and now black of course cannot recapture with the rook, as just a6 falls. Black had to take with the queen instead. Yeah, and now it's simple. I just take the c file, queen b7, and knight to c6. Finally, yeah, the knight is arriving on this fantastic square. He played bishop to f8. Yeah, understandable. It's not like this bishop is so great, but if he plays something like that, for example, I can, amongst other things, just take and play rook c7, which is very great. Yeah, I mean, I'm dominating here. Queen c1 on the c file. a5 is weak. And I can even push the knight back if I want. It's just fantastic. So bishop f8 is also what I had expected. Yeah, here I played knight a5, queen b6. Here I actually missed something. I think before that I'm pretty positive that I played almost I played best moves or close to best moves. Here I can play better really. Bishop c7 is better than what I played. The idea is that it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, black plays queen a7 and then rook c6 is strong. I saw that, but I wasn't totally sure how strong it is. Also, the move that I played is also quite good. It both is an advantage. This is probably even a little bit more than that. I was a bit unsure if maybe I'm somehow not coordinating my pieces right here, but white is just much better here in this position. Probably this is, as mentioned, even better than what I played. I played the very attractive looking move, rook c6. It's quite funny. Yeah? If black takes the knight, there's bishop c7 trapping the queen. In fact, that is what he did. Of course, he saw that the queen is lost, but he was really desperate at this moment. What black should do is play queen d8. Yeah, ignore the knight. Then I'm going to continue with something like this. f3 again, keeping this square under control so that knight e4 is not coming. Knight d8, knight b7, queen d7, rook b6. Something like that. White is playing for this invasion on the queen side and still has an excellent game and big advantage. But the other continuation with bishop c7 immediately was a bit stronger. However, in practical terms, this was very successful, this rook c6 move, because after this he really took on a5. Before you say, oh, he's an IM, he shouldn't blunder his queen. The thing is, he saw that, but he felt like passive defense is useless, and he wanted to just change the position somehow to sort of get an imbalance, even if it's not good for him. I understand this decision, really. You don't want to suffer in a passive position all the time. He was pretty much frustrated about this course of the game anyway. Yeah, takes on a5, bishop c7. The queen is trapped. And he has rook c8, of course. This is the point. After this and this, my bishop is slightly offside. And this is a reason why black actually could have some hope here. The problem is that there is a very concrete reason why this is not working, and this is the move g4. Not the only move, but it's a good move. It gains a tempo in a way on this bishop and makes sure that I have some additional space for the king, so that I'm not back rank mated or anything. This is a danger for white. His back rank is a bit weak. This is, however, a very clean win. The reason is that after a bishop move, he can also go to g6. It's not a huge difference. I always have queen e1, and this is important. It looks at this pawn. And this is the key thing. I either win the pawn, or after b3, which is what he did in the game, I can play bishop b4. And this makes sure that my offside bishop is getting into play. This way also, when these bishops are traded, I get to activate my queen. And this happened in the game. He played knight e4. I took there, queen b4 check. And here white is really totally winning. The pawn on a6 is also lost. He tried knight to d6. And knight to d6 is allowing a nice finish to the game. And he resigned after the next move. The move for white to finish this off immediately is bishop b5. It's nice, not difficult, but still nice. Just attacking the rook, and well, here he resigned, but after captures, the rook is attacked, and if it moves somewhere else than b6, I'll just take d6 with check and win with the b pawn. After rook here, I go queen c5. And we see that the queen is totally dominating here with the pin and the attack here. White will win the house. Yeah, something like this is going to happen, and the rook is lost. So yeah, a nice game. I was pretty satisfied, thinking that I really made little mistakes or inaccurate moves. it shows that the exchange variation here in the Slav, it has a drop of poison. It's not always a drawing weapon. In the hands of a player that is prepared and has some ideas, it can pose some problem to black. If you play an opening like the Slav, or sometimes it can also apply to some extent to an opening like the French defense, where the exchange variation has a very drawish and dull reputation. You shouldn't always think that your opponent is just playing for a draw if he plays one of those somewhat dull lines. Sometimes they just want to play a bit safe and try to press from a position of total security. And this was basically my attitude in this game. I didn't want to play a draw quickly or something. I just wanted to have a safe game and try to, it's just like asking your opponent, are you really completely playing this perfectly in the first couple of moves, or are you not? And he made some little inaccurate moves, like this rook a7 probably, and maybe b5, and there were some not so accurate moves, and all of a sudden black was in big trouble. So it's not like those dull openings always lead to a draw. And for the white player, I can really recommend to, if you play d4 and you face the Slav, it makes some sense to have the exchange variation of the Slav in your repertoire. It can be a super safe choice and can always be played regardless of the situation. It's not so great to play if you really need a win super badly, but if you just want to play for a win with a sort of, if you want draw in hand, then it's a pretty decent choice. I hope you enjoyed this game, and I'll cover a new game of mine right tomorrow, so watch out for that. This will have a little bit more tactical action, by the way. Thanks for watching.